So, hi guys, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Katinda. And today we have a fabulous Melanie, and Melanie's from London. Oh, they're from London. So, Melanie, tell us something about yourself.
Hey everybody. Yes, I'm originally from London. I'm in London at the moment, but I see myself as, I guess, a world citizen. I feel like the world belongs to me because I've lived in 4 different countries. So I've also lived in Australia, I've lived in Cyprus, I've lived in Lithuania, and London. And I'm just looking forward to, exploring more of the world. I travel a lot, but living and getting to know culture. So that's cool. I'm actually on a move now, moving countries again in the next week. So that's very exciting. Um, and then in terms of background, I've had a pretty diverse background in terms of careers. So, I've been in education, I've been in makeup, I've worked in sales. I now have a travel company and a sales company where we train people in sales. I love to cook. I love to dance. I originally trained as a dancer and as an actress and had a short career in that industry. So yeah, that's me, just loving life, love meeting new people and inspiring and helping. So yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of amazing stuff. Yeah. So, Melanie, the last time when we first met in Melbourne, it was a pleasure to meet you. And something that stood out for me was the fire and the passion that you had. And today, I know we're talking about a lot of different things, but I just love that energy. You've got the energy, you've got the beauty, you've got the finesse, you've got all this happening. So, when I was talking to you, and then I gave you my book and the big comeback, and you got the book and you read the book, and you were saying to me that, yes, that the big comeback right there. Yes. So tell me, so what did you feel after reading this book? What really stood out for you?
Hmm. So what I loved most about the book was in the last chapter, you asked some questions. And these questions, I'm just going to flick through and have a look at them because they were things like, what do you observe? And that was actually a question that was very original to your book. I've read a lot of personal development books, and not many ask you, what do you observe? Or what would you do to make the world a better place? And what books would we find in your library? So of course many books cover what would you do to make the world a better place, and you start to think, but what do you observe and what books would we find in your library was a new step. And when I asked myself those questions, it really made me feel like, yes, you're on the right path. Keep following your passion. And a while back on my phone, I was feeling a little lost a couple of years ago, and I put a screensaver on my phone, and it said, follow what excites you, because that will lead you to your passion, and your passion will lead you to your purpose. And it just really struck my heart because I felt like empowered because of those questions, but also like I'd said yes to myself. Because so often in
Right.
life you feel like your goals, they have to be financial. And I'm not saying money's not important. Money's very important. It's like oxygen, it's right up there. You have so many more choices when you have money. But to feel a life of true
Correct.
fulfillment, you have to be happy in your day-to-day life. So if you're really not loving what you do and you're only doing it for the money, then you actually miss your life. And that's really what I loved, especially towards the end of the book. Yes.
So the question I'm going to ask you then, what type of books would we find in your library if we were to look?
So actually, you'd find a lot of cookbooks. Um, I love to cook.
Oh,
Yes. So I've actually just started a little YouTube channel called Taste of Travel with Melanie. And I've been
nice.
passionate about cooking since I was a child. I remember the first time I cooked something, I invited a friend over. I was 7 years old. And we made like these cheese straws. And I was like really, really excited about this. And I wanted to give them to like all my relatives to try. And it's the same today. Like the other day, I made some marmalade with Jamaican rum and Seville oranges, and I gave it to all my neighbors. And I thought, do you know what? Today, you've made somebody smile in your building. You've brought them happiness. You've given something which is a part of you to them, and they've got a part of you in their house, and they're enjoying that. And you're bringing them joy, and they're going to share that with their family. And I love food. I love food. I love. Do you see my smile? Like I'm ready for
Obviously,
so
that's your passion.
yeah.
That's passion because you, as I said, you've got the energy and you just giving it to us real good. So yeah,
I'm writing a recipe book that I want to publish by the end of the year. But these are things like, it's not necessarily for money. This is because I love it. And, I hustled real hard in my career for 8 years. And last year I chose to take a year out. And I traveled and I went to the gym every day. That's another thing I love is fitness. Um,
right.
and I just learned to fall in love with my passions again and really explore them and just think about, what, if time and money wasn't an issue, what would you do? Like if you didn't have
Right.
to do something for money, and I'm so blessed because I don't have to work for money anymore. So I can go out and experiment and do all of these things and, write cookbooks and film videos. So yeah.
Wow, that is so amazing because I know a lot of people always struggle with finding their purpose. What is it they need? What is something which is meaningful to them and something they love to do? And with the book, what I did in that second last chapter, Finding Your Purpose, was more to just trigger people's emotional feeling like, what exactly is going on in my life? Am I on the right track? Do I need to reassess myself? Do I need to really focus and see what is something that I really love doing? And when I'm doing it, time just goes past without you noticing. And there's a lot of different ways because a lot of people always question because they're not sure how to go about it. And I thought I really made it really simple because it's like 5 steps, which is not hard to do. Like you were saying before about what do you observe. Obviously, things that you notice for a reason. Otherwise, you wouldn't notice these things. And then what do you want to contribute to the world? I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing in this world because we are here to learn a lot of things. But at the same time, we're here to teach and educate others and share the beauty of our knowledge. And one thing I always believe is I always say it's pointless going to the grave with the music still in you because you were born to give it to us, to share your beauty, to share your music, to share your songs, your books, your cookbook, to share all that amazing stuff that you've got because we all have something special and we just forget that. And that's why that was so passionate for me, and especially thinking that that came to me after my father passed away. So before that, I didn't click what passion was about. Living your purpose. I had no idea. I guess I was like most people in the world, they just don't understand this kind of concept. And until something happens in your life that shakes you a little bit and distracts a lot of things, and then you wake up and go, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Who am I? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And all that kind of stuff. So that just stirs a lot of things for a lot of people. And I can see for me,
I have to say that part, it was actually really funny because I would recommend for the people reading this book to read it as fast as possible because one night I had gone to bed, but I didn't sleep all night because it was at the point when you had started to talk about purpose and you talk about your father. And the whole night I was like, well, trying to sleep, but what does my life mean? Am I giving enough? Am I doing enough? Like the whole night through. So in the end, I was like, no, tonight I'm finishing this book. I'm not going to have any more sleepless nights. I'm going to know what I'm doing, where I'm going moving forwards. But it's good to have a book that stirs you so much that you can't sleep. That is awesome.
But did you write down, as you were reading that part, that chapter, were you actually writing down the steps? Because each step had a question and the question had an example of an answer. So while you were doing it, were you writing what your answers are for you?
I didn't write them down at the time, but I do feel like I've marked in the book this page. And I've had a really, really good think about it, and something that I'm going to take where I'm going to start my new chapter from next week because I'm moving somewhere really beautiful in a place where I can be present. And that was another thing that came from your book, journaling and being present in the moment and acknowledging every single day as it comes. So I will be moving to a beautiful house with a pool with a sea view, and I'm not saying everybody has. I know, lucky me.
Wow, I'm jealous, girl.
But coming to terms with moving from London, my home, where I have my whole support structure, was hard for me. And I had actually written down at the time when I had to move how I was feeling at that time. And your book highlighted how important writing is for me. Writing emotions and being able to have growth through your emotions, being able to decide which emotions you take, because we are able, if we put our reaction down on paper, we're able to go back, look at the reaction and choose a response instead. So I've got this book, and you do actually quote Eckhart Tolle. You quote some of his stuff in your book. And I've actually got a diary, which is his diary, based off some of the quotes that he's written on from Power of Now, which I'm going to start journaling in and writing things down in from when I get to Cyprus and my new home. So I thought that would be a great place to start a new chapter and start a new habit.
Yeah, journaling is one of those things I think a lot of people take it for granted. And it's really, really important, because I feel with me, what I do is I've made it like I do it twice a day. So first thing when I wake up, and it's all about, I start with gratitude, which is something I like to talk a lot about, because I believe we are where we are because of whatever we chose to be, but we have to be grateful for where we are, for whatever we have as well. And it's not about complaining. It's about just being grateful. First of all, for me, the most important thing, I'm grateful that I'm alive. I can breathe in and breathe out, because with that breath, we're not here. And again, that's in the power of now, being present and everything. But I believe when people journal and they write, especially when you're going through challenges in life, it's not always, the answer is not always out there. The answer is always within. And that's why people don't realize that when you just quieten yourself, you just go quiet and just go through your thoughts and write how you're feeling, you'll find your solutions. A lot of times you know the answer, but we don't pause. We are always just rushing, thinking somebody else is going to fix it. But we have the answers. And it just takes time to get used to that habit. And I believe, you've experienced that as well. So, once you go quiet, when you're really in a sort of messed up situation, things just get better. I don't know why, but they just do. It's hard to explain why they do, because you just realize it's not as bad as you think it is. Yeah. And especially when you write it down.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a president, I don't remember which one, but it's they talk about it in How to Win Friends and Influence People. The tip of his Lincoln. So he used to write letters, I think you even mention it in your book as well. Do you mention that in your book?
I don't remember what part.
He writes letters down of like how he's feeling, and if he still feels the same way in the morning, he sends those. So sometimes I do it as well. Like if I have like some stuff I really have to say, I'll sit and I will just write a letter and write it. And then the next day I'll have a read over it and I'll say, is this still relevant? Is this still relevant? Do I need to have a conversation with that person, or was that my emotion in the heat of the moment? Especially when you're, let's say, a leader in your industry or you're leading a team, you've got to keep your emotions in check. So why not write it down, lock your notes on your phone or however it is, and do what you need to do. But also in terms of gratitude, I just want to touch on what you said there, Katinda, because I was having a difficult time about a year ago where I just needed to sort of take some time out and reflect. And I bought myself, and it's one of my most prized possessions, really, and it's nothing expensive. I got it off Amazon, but it's a little stone that writes gratitude on it. And it sits by my bed, and I have it there in the morning and there at the night. And it's the first thing I see. And so I'm able to start my day and finish my day by thinking about moments that I was grateful for. And, for me, gratitude's a very private thing. We used to have it where I would share with my partner gratitude, but I felt like my gratitude was being judged or something, which isn't true. That's my perspective of how it is. But for me, gratitude's a very private thing. It's usually is what you're grateful for, and it can be the tiniest thing. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's something that you're grateful for. It becomes stronger and stronger. So I have that stone by my bed, and it really means the world to me, and it allows me to take that time to be in the moment, because there are so many things. I'd rather start my day with gratitude than with my phone. And on my phone, I don't know whether you're a believer, Katinda, but I've started my year by going on a pilgrimage to Israel, to the Holy Land. And I don't want to preach religion on anybody during this conversation, but like for me, it was a nice, aware part to start my life with. It was a journey of starting discovery and starting searching. I'd rather start my day on my phone with a verse from a Bible verse that pops up first than, with messages from Facebook or messages from Instagram or emails, because the thing about these days is we don't switch off or be in that moment or just have one thought at a time and say, let me just breathe in the air or let me just listen to the birds. So I think that's something really, really great to start the day with. I went off on a few tangents there.
No, that's okay. And, the other thing I like to say to people is stop and smell the roses of the flowers. Just walk in the park and just observe the trees, look at the leaves, just look at the color, look at how the design is. It's just amazing. There is so much beauty in this world that we miss it because we're too busy, caught up in, all this internet and technology and everything, but then we forget to be human beings.
Definitely.
Yeah,
There was a quote I saw recently that one of our leaders in our team said. He said, back in the day, we used to get on the internet to escape real life. Now we escape from the internet for real life. You know,
right.
And it's so true. And I think what you mentioned about smelling the roses is becoming aware of our senses. So there was an exercise that we used to do when I was in drama school where you'd stop and you'd listen. And first you'd close your eyes and you'd listen to the sounds in the room. And then you'd take your ears outside of the room and listen to your outside environment. And then you'd listen further. And you'd become so present in that moment that you could hear a car press a horn a couple of streets away and you would jump because you were so tuned in with that sense. Like, you suddenly use your senses to live in the now. It becomes so much more powerful.
That's so true, so true. So if there's one thing you would like to tell our viewers about the big comeback, what is the most important thing, or what is one thing that was really, really, really that really made you think more about what I need to do next? What's your next step?
So you do talk a lot about toxic relationships in this book, and
Yeah,
I'm starting to think, okay, I've been very blessed in my life that I haven't really had a toxic partnership. I mean, I've had some stuff that I'm not going to touch here in my past as a child growing up, and like certain things that have happened which I've dealt with. But it made me think, am I toxic with myself sometimes? Yeah, like, could the most toxic relationship that I have be the toxic relationship that I have with me? Because the most time that we spend talking to ourselves is with ourselves, right? We're the loudest in our head. So do I need to monitor how I'm treating myself sometimes, what I'm saying to myself? And there was a part, I love this part of your book, where you go, when was the last time you wrote yourself a love letter? And I was like, wow, I've written myself love letters, not love letters, like, to remind myself of who I am in the morning. But have I written a love letter? Have I romanced myself? Have I told myself how beautiful I am, how worthy I am? Like, you got to treat yourself the way Beyonce treats herself. And that was something that I loved about the book, the how-tos. Like many books, they talk, but they don't give you a step that you can take right now in the moment. And that was a beautiful part. So, I would encourage everybody to read this book, because you can always learn something from anyone, no matter where you are in life. You never know it all. And this book covered so many beautiful things in a way that no matter how many personal development books I've read, no matter how big the authors are, this book had nuggets which I had never seen before. And it really touched my heart in a way that I felt like, yes, I can implement that right away. I can have more growth as a person through this book. So that was great. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you. Talking about writing a love letter to yourself, did you already start writing one to yourself?
Do you know what? Again, like, as you know, my house is completely packed and it's the moving time, but I want to do that. And I did have, when you like go for a walk and you talk to yourself and you have the discussions, I had the inner discussion with myself, but I am going to do that, because I read a letter that I wrote to myself a year ago recently. It was on a personal development course that I did for myself. And you shouldn't judge yourself going into the past, but I was kind of disappointed in the letter, because the letter was more like, it was self-acceptance, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And the letters which I've written to myself in the past haven't always been with love. It's been with maybe encouragement. It's been with pushing. And I'm very hard on myself as well. Like, I'm one of these people that I love to run. I love to go to the gym, but every time I run, I have to do a personal best. If my run isn't better than the last time I ran, I'm mad. And I said to a friend this morning, I said to her, oh, I did a 5K yesterday, but I was very disappointed. And she said, oh, why was it? I said, I was 2.5 minutes slower than the last time I ran it. And yeah, and the thing is, instead of like loving on myself and being like, do you know what, Mel? Well done. You went out there, because I gave it my best. I just didn't get the best time. You gave it your best. You completed it. You ran the whole way. Your legs were cramping the whole time you were running, but you did it. You completed it. That's amazing. That shows this. Instead of giving myself the positive love, I was giving myself negative love. And I think sometimes we've got to learn to give ourselves that positive love when we need it. Yes, you got to give yourself a kick up the ass when you need it, but you don't need that every day. You need to be your own biggest cheerleader. And that's so important. So I'm looking forward to writing that love letter.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing I found when I was writing that love letter, it was very painful to do because it was almost like you're confronting yourself. And this is not like when I wrote it, I knew I was writing it for the world to see. And I was ready to do that because I realized if I'm healing through this love letter to myself, other people reading it will be encouraged to do the same thing for themselves, because sometimes we're looking for healing in the wrong places and we can do it all ourselves. It all starts with us as well. And I found it was very difficult to write it because some of the things obviously was talking about things that I didn't do right because I was younger, I was naive, maybe I was a bit stupid, I don't know, all this. And you find yourself judging yourself, which is fine because you're talking to yourself. And then you correct that because now you know better, so you do better. And it's just the way life is. You're not born knowing everything. And that's why every day, like even talking to you, I'm learning a lot of things from you. Everybody you talk to, whether it's a kid or whatever, anywhere you go, there's always something to learn. And that's a very important thing. Most people miss, to think, oh, I know everything. Nobody knows anything. We're all just doing the best we can with what we have and taking the opportunity to learn as much as you can from the people that you meet. And another thing also you were talking about, once you move to Cyprus, you're going to start writing this love letter. Now, a lot of people procrastinate for a lot of reasons. Sometimes I'm a big believer that when you say you're going to do something, you're holding yourself accountable. So when you don't do it, you let yourself down. And what I'd like to say is look in the mirror when you're doing that, like a mirror that you can see your top torso, not just seeing just your head. And when you're in the mirror, affirm that that's what you're going to do, and always do that to yourself every day. Like, I'm going to do this, and then make sure you do it. Because what happens is so many things come up, excuses, I'm busy, this came up, this is more important. And it's not the case. It's just once you get into the habit of procrastinating, you procrastinate with everything. And they say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Amen.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer of saying when you get your aha moment and you're thinking, okay, this is what I feel, this is what I think I need to do, I believe I need to do it, it's always best to start tackling it right away. Because then, what do I call it? The wave of inspiration is in you at that point. And once it leaves, it takes a long time to get you back on that wave. And it's something I write in my book about the inspiration, because once the wave is gone, it takes a long time to get you back to another inspirational situation where you feel, wow, I need to do this. And I need to do it right now. There's never tomorrow. Now is the time. And I think, again, I talk about towards the end of my book, I talk about legacy. We don't have much time. Look at the COVID-19. It's been a good example.
All night when you started talking about legacy, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Is my life going? Do I need to have children? She has a child.
But we don't think about these things. A lot of things in my book, we don't get taught that stuff in schools. I talk about fear. When my opening chapter was about fear, what are we afraid of? Why don't we do the best we can with what we've got? We've got everything. We're born equipped to succeed in this life. But something along the way stops us. It's either the environment, the people that bring you up, negative people, it's just so much stuff that just stops you from being excellent because we already born this person. And I find fear is a big thing for a lot of people. And I talk mainly women because we have something that holds you back. Somebody maybe called you stupid at some point and you keep thinking, maybe they were right. So you get an opportunity, something that you can do. You're amazing at it. You could do it, but that's what is it, that inner voice starts to play games and you say, oh, you can't do that, you're not good enough, who told you you can do that, nobody like you's ever done it. So that plays up in your crazy head, and guess what, before you know it, you give that idea away, and then you procrastinate and you never do it. And then next time you see somebody who's done something similar, you're like, oh, they stole my idea because I wanted to do that. But what stopped you? Something stopped you. And this is, again, goes back to the journaling. When you journal those kind of things, you can ask yourself those questions. Why am I procrastinating on this thing? What is it? I don't feel good enough? Or is it because somebody told me that? Or what is it about this situation? So what's your take on that, about fear?
I've conquered a lot of fears, but these fears are more physical fears. Like, I'm one of these girls that goes out, like, I used to be afraid of flying. In fact, the first time I flew to Australia, I was so scared of the flight that I slept for 18 hours on the way to Australia, because that was how I handled it. Whereas now, I've been in helicopters, I've traveled to 40 different countries. I don't like it, but I can embrace it, and I have faith. And faith is really what gets you through,
Yes.
that inner faith. I've swum with the sharks, the great white sharks in Australia.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've put myself in those fear-facing situations, but sometimes I think the fears that we really want to talk about are the real life fears, the fears that the fears that women have difficulty talking about. So, as we get older, do I need children? Or, will I get married? Or am I settling, or am I choosing the right person? Like, all of these things that are actually really do matter, but we avoid them. So I think in terms of like physical fears, I've gone out, I've done Tough Mudder, I've done all these army training courses, and a lot of people say to me, Mel, you're so amazing on stage. Yeah, because I went out, I learned how to be an actress. I'm not afraid of like going for an interview or a job. We're speaking in front of like 10,000 people, but sometimes these life fears, which are actually huge because they dictate the direction of your life, and making those choices and saying, yes, let's go for it. Those are the fears that sometimes are the hardest to face. And that is how your book comes in, because it's deep reflection time. It's those fears that keep you awake at night, which are the hardest to conquer, which you have to deal with. Otherwise life's going to pass you by. Time goes so quickly, and you're going to go, oh my God, how did I get here? And it's not where I wanted to be,
Yeah, no, the thing is, I think that one of the biggest fears is the fears of the unknown, like you talk about, we fear the unknown. You're not sure whether you should have kids, you're running late, time is running out. But I'm a big believer in, I know fear is what you make up in your mind. It's not actually a real thing. And I say it's false evidence appearing real. So if you create it and you decide that that's actually something which is going to traumatize you, it will, because you've allowed it to do that. So I always suggest to people, like, whatever it is you fear, face it. Just go do it and just go through it. Because sometimes you find once you've faced it, it's not a big deal. And you're like, what the hell? I've been waiting all these years. I've been scared of doing A, B, C, D, and it's not a big deal at all. So it's a question of just facing it and just getting your strength and just saying, you know what, I'm afraid of this thing. But then again, write it down. Why am I afraid of it? Give yourself your reasons, and you'll find those reasons are not even valid. You can't even justify to yourself why you're afraid. And that's a lot of people, like, most of the times, if you ask somebody really what makes you so scared, sometimes they don't have an answer. And if you don't have an answer, guess what? Then you're not afraid. You need to just go head on and just do whatever it is you need to do.
100%. Yeah. Like, when you're touching on this, it actually made me feel like, because I was afraid to move to Cyprus. It's not a country where I have positive experiences. It's not a country where, like, I felt discriminated against in this country many, many times.
Right.
Yeah. And I've had situations which have been very emotional, and it was a choice that I had to make. Should I face the fear and go for it and move and say, you know what, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to have my own back over there. And if anybody comes up against me, I'm going to go up against them. And it was challenging for me, because I had options, and when you have options where you can just say, screw everything, I'm staying here and I'm not going to go.
Yes.
But the same happened with moving to Australia, funnily enough. I had my education company. It had just been voted #1 for one-on-one education here in the UK. So we were the top tutoring company, getting children results all over. And I waited until the school year was up. And the boxes had already been shipped to Australia. But part of me was like, shall I just stay? Because I'm doing and just leave the stuff in Australia. It doesn't matter. Leave my relationship. It doesn't matter. And just stay here and go for the career. But I didn't. I faced the fear. I went into the unknown. I moved to a continent where I knew no one. And within a year, I built the same company up in Australia to $100,000 within a year without knowing a single person. But on top of that, I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. I didn't lose a single client from the UK, and I coached all my UK clients between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. So, sometimes when you say, you have to really look at that fear and you have to say, yes, it just reminded me of a situation that I was facing 3 weeks ago. We only decided to move 3 weeks ago. And it just made me think, do you know what? Like you could stay with your whole support structure here in the UK. You could stay where you're comfortable. You could stay where you have your workout routine and your dance teacher and your kitchen and you have the beautiful show kitchen upstairs and you live next to a footballer, like all this cool stuff that you have. Or you could go, do you know what? I'm ready. Thank you for this chapter. Let's go and embrace the next chapter. And you know what? If life falls apart, I know I'm strong enough to handle it. And that's something your book covers that. I feel like your book came at the right time because you gave me this book in September last year when we were in Melbourne. But I only started reading it in June. The books pile up and you're reading this book and that book. And this is such an easy read as well. And I had it next to my bed. And I just went, this is the book. This is the time. And it was the right time to read it. It came at the right time into my life. So it just called to me, and I'm so grateful for this book at the time because it helped me become okay with the big decisions that I've made in my life. So yes to the book. A big comeback.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, on just finishing on this, I just want to ask you a question about legacy. At the back of this book, there's a few questions. I finished with the questions. So they're a little bit, I think the questions that a lot of people, I say, when you're asking these questions, especially people that you love, your family or friends, people have to have an open mind because they're quite deep. And a lot of people don't like to talk about things that, deal with death or legacy, because legacy is always like thinking, oh my gosh, somebody's going to die and they're going to go. And it's not about, and I always talk about legacy is more about spiritual legacy. It's what you leave inside people. It's not what you live for them. It's not what you say to them. And Maya Angelou had a very good quote where she said, people will always forget what you did for them. People will forget what you say to them, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is, again, when I'm talking about legacy, I was thinking about all that, because if you leave spiritual legacy in people, you live in your music in them, you're living all the greatness in you, you're transferring that to them. People will always remember that, because it's more about how would you feel if somebody mentioned your name when you're gone. I mean, when you talk about it, people would be uncomfortable if you were not a very good person. But if you were a great person, they would love to use your name in a lot of things. So I'll ask you a quick question. How would you like to be remembered if you were to suddenly vanish?
You know what? This is such a big moment, because I'm going to go off on a tangent again, but I will.
That's correct.
So I gave my grandmother a book when I was living in Australia, and I used to live in Australia about 3 years ago now. And while I was out there, I sent her a book because I couldn't attend her birthday. And the book was to her, from me, for her to write to me. So it had questions, and it had that. I've actually got the book here, and it had that exact question in it. I'm actually just going to grab the book from the table.
Yeah, sure, go for it. Go for it.
So here's the book. It's called Dear Grandma, From You to Me. And so it does have the question that you've just asked me. What would you like your epitaph to say? I think it says. And it made me think about a lot of things, because she's just written just one sentence.
Yes.
Here. And it says, she was a nice person who tried to see the best in everyone. And I know I have that from her. I definitely always see the best in people. It's something that surprised my business partner when we first started working together, because I bring all sorts of people to meetings and she'd be like, really? And I'd be like, yeah, but look, they've got this and they've got this and they've got this. So I think it is very important to make sure that you're kind. But then if I suddenly vanished, I do want to be remembered. And I was watching some Chinese martial arts thing. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was with Bruce Lee or it was something else, but they say that you don't die when you die of physical death. You die when your name is spoken for the last time on a living person's lips.
Wow.
It might even be the book I'm reading right now, which is about Chinese martial arts. It's called Winning, Not Fighting. And the man who wrote it owns a fast food franchise over here that's very successful, but it's healthy fast food. And so for me, if I suddenly vanish tomorrow, what would I want to be remembered for? That I helped people, that I touched their life and they felt like they could go on because I was there, that I made them smile, I brought them joy, I made them feel happy and I gave them a piece of me. And so when I think and I answer this question, it really is all about touching other people's lives, which surprises me. I love to bring joy. Like, making other people happy makes me so happy you've got no idea. Like when I feed someone and I see the joy in their face when they taste my food, and I know that I've created that feeling in them, that brings me happiness. When I make people laugh, I do these funny videos sometimes. I don't know why. I just do like crazy funny videos.
It's good. Humor is important.
Yeah. And then the neighbors will laugh or I'll make them smile. And I love to make them smile. If somebody can say, you know what, her life brought us happiness, then I feel like, yes, that's given me purpose. It's only small, but to me, it means the world.
It doesn't, I believe anything you do to other people, something that's good and nice, it doesn't have to be in big ways, because people think you have to do a lot of big things. Just a little thing. I believe it, even just smiling, like you were walking on the street and you smile at someone, you might be the only smile they've ever seen for such a long time, and you brighten their day. And that's, again, what is that? That's legacy right there. And what my belief is, even I put in my book, I talk about how legacy is everywhere you go, anywhere you've been. So if you've been in a car, in a bus, in a plane, wherever you've been, you're always leaving your legacy because you've been there and there's people around you. So there's always, and especially with you, with your education company, you're leaving a legacy every single day with every human being you talk to. And that's amazing. Great work.
Yeah. But sometimes, because I surround myself with what I believe is the 0.03% of the world's achievers, I operate in a very high financial level, let's say. So the people we're surrounded by are constantly people who are in that huge number bracket. And sometimes on yourself, you feel like, no, I have to teach people to make millions. I have to leave millions behind. I have to be the go-getter. And yeah, I can be all of these things. But at the end of the day, it's the joy that I bring people that brings me so much more value, fulfillment, peace inside of me than figures ever will. And a young man that we work with together on our team, he posted this picture that just blew my mind yesterday. I was in the elevator and I saw it. And the picture was of somebody going into the grave, but like the Egyptians, he'd tried to take all of his stuff with him. So how they buried him with riches, and the guy said, the only thing we want here is your soul. Right? So he said, no matter how much you've made, we only want to take your soul with us. And so then when that goes back to my grandmother, she's 84 years old and she put something so simple in her book that I want people to say, I was a nice person and I saw the best in everyone. And that's a powerful statement. And I would encourage everybody on this call, if your grandparents are around, get them a book like this. This is one of my most valuable possessions right now. This is everything that she's got to teach me, her life, my family's history, their legacy, their names are in this book. So they're living on through me in this book, and they'll live on through, I don't know if I have children, through them, or my brothers if they have children. That's like a big thing on this conversation. but people live on. So I know I've answered that much longer than you were expecting.
No,
But it's a big question.
so just on conclusion, I've got a few one-liner questions. Where I just want you to give me something when I say. So, what do you think of Black Lives Matter?
It's
Just one
very,
word.
it's very important. It's wow, profound. One word,
Yes,
but
one word.
it's huge.
It's huge. Okay. What do you believe about God?
He keeps me in check.
What is I would talk about hope.
Hope, you have to have it. It's vital.
Yeah. And what about I'm thinking for something that's not so much controversial, just more about energy.
Mm. Okay, so it's a
Two
little,
words.
but I think with energy, influence the energy. Don't let the energy influence you.
Right, right, right. What about with also integrity?
Integrity. Whew, it's a big one. You know what? Be the person that will live with the consequences of what you do. So there's a Chinese proverb that says, if you don't want anybody to find out about it, don't do it.
That's
And
right.
don't play victim to the circumstances that you created for yourself. So if you screw it up for yourself. You know that. You go and handle that.
Great, great. So, what's one thing, on conclusion, what's one thing you want to leave with the viewers tonight?
Read the book.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Read about the book. Just go out there and read the book.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show tonight. Although from London, Melanie Aristidou. Is that how
you've got it. Awesome.
Oh, I got it. I got it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Conversations with Katinda. And today we were talking about The Big Comeback, which is the book I wrote, and Melanie was talking about how The Big Comeback has actually impacted her life and how moving forward she knows it's going to help her with a lot of things that she's been facing or things, life challenges. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.